Strategic setup of a new company coming up now. Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining in, and today we're going to do a slightly different video because I have been approached by an entrepreneur who is actually setting up his new company. Now, he came up with 4 options and he was not quite sure which one is the best strategic setup for him. So let's have a look at this, and I thought it's going to be a good learning experience for all of us to see what steps we're thinking through and what could be potential outcomes. As for this video, I have to tell you that I'm not disclosing any information on the country, the person, or the industry, so I'm trying to keep it as general as possible, but still trying to help you guide through our thinking in that process. The entrepreneur actually has been in his industry for more than 17 years now, and he wants to start his own company. He sees a huge opportunity, and one of the biggest market changes currently is the restrictions that are actually placed to the pandemic out there. So new types of interactions are in force, of course, and you know a lot of people are going online, and that is one of the major factors. Now, he came up and said, well, I have this plan for my company. I have had contact with some initial investors, and I'm not quite sure which is the best way to go. So we started and had a discussion on what his options are, and he presented a pitch deck to me. Now, first of all, I have to say that that pitch deck was not the utmost best pitch deck you can get on the planet, and it actually was confusing in such a way that it is not quite clear what he's actually aiming to do and what could be the benefits of an investor for that company. He then further on noticed that, well, I have 4 options that I was thinking of. The first option is to bootstrap. So start small, develop everything as I can do on the go, and then, once I'm getting bigger, hire more people and expand the business. The second option he came up was, okay, I'm going to collect a lot of funds, a couple millions, close to 10 most likely, and I'm going to blast everything off, and I'm going to buy an already set up system, and I'm going to adapt it, and then from there on kill the market. The third option he came up with was, okay, I might just white label an existing solution down there in the country I'm working in, and I'm trying to address the customer needs by this way, and could be successful. The fourth option was, and we didn't discuss this in further detail, a mixture of all 3 of them. And so it was, the typical situation that you are as an entrepreneur when you want to start a new business or venture. What is the best way to approach the market? Now, during the discussion, I asked him, okay, what is your main customer looks like? What is the effect and what are the problems that you're trying to solve? And it became quite clear that the need actually seems to be very large. Hence, this is a great opportunity. However, the question is, with what type of risk are you addressing this problem? Now, if you consider, let's say, getting $5 to $10 million, of course, this would be a huge risk for you because you have not proven yet that you have a viable product, a minimal viable product actually, that people are willing to buy and use. So that is a huge risk on that side. However, if you just bootstrap and just come on and say you start with 10, 15, 20, 30, 1,000 customers, you might get the minimal viable product early, but you might be too slow, and others with more and deeper pockets might overtake you. So we had a discussion on what are possibilities for him, and he also agreed that most likely starting off big is not the right way because he first has to nail down the key elements of what his product should look like. Secondly, he was thinking that maybe also the people I have been talking to so far are not the most trustworthy on the planet. So, he was planning with numbers that might have been out of reach for him right now. And I also said to him, look, the most important and critical factor, besides a better execution, is time. And if you are able to get as much time out of your money as possible, you need to cut down spending heavily. So what we did is we discussed in detail the best ways where he should actually hire someone and where he should outsource everything that is not an essential part of his business. This way, he would just hire a freelancer to do the job, and then these guys will not be on the payroll later on. I also gave him the example that actually, look, I worked in a startup and I'm still working in a startup, and we've managed to go down 5 to 6 years now with spending only half of the money you were anticipating to spend in the first 3 years. This actually shows you that if you are able to use the funds correctly, you're much safer and more stable, and you can even weather down some uncertainties like we have currently. So what happened next? We discussed in detail one of the providers that he picked up that he wanted to buy or license a software from. Turned out they gave him an offer, but that offer actually was not, let's put it in a way that it's nice to say, the most optimal one. Reality is they were asking a lot of money and a lot of equity in the company just to white label a software for him so that he can use it to do his business afterwards. I felt like this is maybe not the right approach, because you're already buying something that is actually not really adapted to your needs, to your markets and your customers. And at that current stage, he doesn't even have a customer, so he has no feedback. He doesn't really know what people will be in need of specifically. Furthermore, those people are maybe not the most trustworthy, and it is very difficult, to spend a huge amount of money upfront on something that maybe afterwards you can't work on. Additionally, those guys were reluctant to provide the source code of the software so that he could start, adapting it to his own needs. So we are there at the point where this was maybe not the best idea. Secondly, we then discussed the option of starting small and developing the own software. The biggest problem here is that, of course, if you do that, you will come into the phase where at the beginning a software most of the time is very buggy. And it might not be in the best interest of the customer to have a very buggy software, because they might lose trust. And since competition might be fierce or might be gaining speed as well right now, it is a good trade-off that we have to think of. Are we able, or is he able to provide a proper setup and a proper control of the work prior launching it in such a way that the minimal viable product at least is not scaring off people? The third option is actually, and that might be a very interesting one, is to piggyback on existing systems out there. That will cause, of course, to have lower margins at the beginning and maybe lower customer reach at the very beginning, but it might be very good to go out to the market, start the branding, get feedback from customers, and by that start developing the own adaptation of what is needed. So with all that discussion happening, he went back home and he was thinking, okay, what am I going to do now? What is my best strategy, and what is your personal best interest? And it turned out that, okay, he dismissed the option of going big at the beginning, but rather have a mixture of bootstrapping and having a small upfront investment or investors that are willing to give him some money so that he can start off. He also thought that most likely piggybacking is most viable option at this time, so that he doesn't have to deal with a lot of upfront bureaucracy in his market, which would enable a much faster adaptation to the customer needs. I also made it clear to him and that he should also be always aware that he has to come up with his unique selling point, that he has to be transparent what he can do better to the customers than anybody else, even though he might be piggybacking on the same system as other people are doing it. So this was a development of a new company in a nutshell. We're still not there with the final strategic setup, because now we are going to do some research on potential suppliers of systems that he requires, and he's also going to look into potential investors. I also told him, look, usually you start with family and friends as an investor group, because these are the most likely ones to trust you, and they don't expect maybe the 10x, 20x, depending on the risk of the company, return on investment. Let's say you have a $10 million investment. What happens? Well, reality is, if you would only get a 10x return, the company would need to be worth $100 million if you would get them 100% in equity. But of course, that's not what you're going to do, right? So they might get, let's say, 10 to 25%. Let's go with 25%. So that in that case, after 3 to 4 years, the company would have been worth, or would have needed to be worth, $400 million US. Now, I thought that this is highly unlikely, because at the beginning, the first 3 years in any market, usually it takes time to get traction and then to get to know and pivot the business in such a way that it actually, matters for the customers. And then usually numbers start to skyrocket. So in that matter, it is better to start off lower, and then once you have some traction, ask for investments at that time, with, of course, then a lower ratio of equity needed to be shared. All right, guys, I hope you liked it, and leave a comment down below if you have questions. And of course, contact me if you got further insights or questions that you want to address, or if you got a company that you would like to have some strategic feedback on. I'm looking forward to it, and see you next time.